We are often asked how alcohol affects the diet. Well, we put Keith on a special fast for 48 hours and then fed him some alcohol, and we're going to show you the results from that little experiment. Hi, I'm Dr. Becky. I'm a college instructor of the science of nutrition.
And you know me, I'm Dr. Keith. I'm a chiropractor in private practice for 26 years, and you're watching Two Fit Docs. And I just got to say, these are the experiments that are fun to do, to be
Right.
a part of.
Yes. All right. So we wanted to look at how alcohol affects your diet. And so we kind of went through a little bit of the scientific method as much as we could with a one-person experiment.
Right.
And so we have the hypothesis, I guess you could say, that as far as your macronutrients, alcohol, its chemical structure is most closely related to a carbohydrate rather than a fat or protein. Agreed?
Agreed.
So we wanted to see if the body handles alcohol like a carbohydrate, which certainly would interfere if you're on a very low carbohydrate diet or a ketogenic diet like Keith has been following. And so So we kind of put that to the test using this strategy. We put Keith on a fat fast for 48 hours and then gave him some alcohol. So why don't you explain why we chose to put you on a fat fast?
Sure. So for 48 hours, I fasted eating only fat, 100% fat. So I was getting about 1,000 calories a day, so definitely a little restricted too, but 100% fat.
Right, so mostly in coffee, like putting
coffee became the
some fat in it. Right?
Yeah, coffee became the medium to get my calories in because I would put heavy cream in it. I had a blended coffee with MCT oil and butter and that as well. But 100% fat, no carbs, no protein. And the point of that was to get myself into ketosis, be in ketosis, have no other nutrients in my body that could be influencing the glucose level in my blood and the insulin, the insulin levels that go with that.
Right, because that's what we wanted to use as our baseline to see how it's affecting his diet, blood glucose, and as a result of that, then insulin. So insulin is your fat storing hormone. It rises when blood sugar rises. So we thought if we could control that blood sugar and that insulin level for a 48-hour period, we'd have a better baseline for then introducing some alcohol to see if the alcohol is acting like a carbohydrate.
Right.
And so go ahead and tell them how you tested your blood sugar before and after.
Okay, so the first thing I tested was my ketones to make sure I was in ketosis. That was a check mark. The next thing that I did was check my blood glucose. Now I hadn't had any carbohydrate, any protein for 2 days, and my blood glucose level was at 97. Now normal fasting blood glucose is anywhere between 80 and 120, and that range depends on who you ask. So I was certainly in that normal range, but I really expected that after 48 hours that it would be quite a bit lower than that. So I was a little bit surprised with that. So,
and that may have been just you. That's going to vary from person to person.
Just a one-person experiment. Yeah. So the next step was is I had 2 beers, and
so this was 48 hours of fasting, and then you had the beers.
Right, had 2 beers, and I chose Michelob Ultra because it's a low carb, low calorie beer. 2 of those, so 24 ounces of that, which was 95 calories each, 2.6 carbs. So as far as they say, so 190 calories and 5 grams of carbs according to the can, right? And then an hour later, I checked my blood glucose again. You typically you give things about 45 minutes to an hour to get out of your stomach, get it, be digested, and get into circulation. So we were expecting a little bit higher number than my starting number, 97. It was 87. It actually came down 10 points.
Right.
And totally, we're just looking at it going, what is going on here, right? I mean, the first number was a little bit strange. The second one was really strange.
Right. So you actually took in some carbohydrates, but yet your blood sugar went down.
Right. So the next thing to do was, I mean, why not continue it, right? So the next thing we did, since I hadn't eaten any food for a couple of days, I had some meat and cheese. I figured I'd add a little bit of protein into my diet, and then another hour later, another finger prick, another blood test, and it went down again to 78. So it's like, well, this, if I keep eating, I'm going to have zero blood sugar, right?
Right.
Yeah, but
Right.
it was
Well,
crazy
no,
results.
but, right. But they were crazy results. So, with eating, you would expect your blood sugar to go up and then your insulin. We didn't test your insulin. That's not something you test at home. But so we did actually have some ideas why this possibly could be. It has to do with your liver and your liver's ability to make glucose when you're not eating sugar, when you're not taking in glucose. So why don't you explain a little bit about how that probably is working?
So we've talked a little bit about gluconeogenesis in the past. So that's your body making glucose from non-carbohydrate substrates, protein and fats. So with being in ketosis, my liver was converting body fat to ketones, and part of that process is to convert the glycerol backbone of the triglyceride into glucose for the body to use.
Right.
So we surmised that in that process my liver was making glucose for my body to use.
Yeah, during your fast.
During the fast, right. So
Which you want to be happening. Your body needs
yeah,
a little
absolutely,
bit
it's doing
of glucose.
exactly what it should be doing.
Right.
So we conjecture that adding a little bit of carb into all of a sudden outside carbohydrate, glucose into my bloodstream, was enough to shut down that process. That the liver stopped gluconeogenesis. There wasn't enough carbohydrate or glucose conversion from the beer to make my whole blood glucose go up very much. So in fact, the liver's not producing it. There's not enough coming in, and it goes down.
Right.
The second part of that was, what if I gave it some protein? Would the protein, be converted to glucose because the glucose levels were low? And again, it didn't seem to be enough to start any kind of processes like that. It actually lowered it a little bit more.
Yeah. All right. So really, it was quite an interesting little experiment. And granted, I mean, we are talking a one-person lab rat here. And so this is really the effects of alcohol on you. Yeah. But it is worthy of notation, and it's very intriguing. So to kind of wrap this up in a nice bow, what are our conclusions about how alcohol affects the diet, or specifically your blood glucose and blood sugar?
Well, it is one of those things we get the question a lot.
Right.
And if you go and look, this person will say that you have to stay completely away from alcohol because it's just like a carbohydrate. This person says, no, that's not true. You can't find anything real solid in any of the literature. So we test it and find out. And my feeling is, at least for me, is that I can handle a couple of low-carb beers a night without it affecting, my being in ketosis. Now, that's not to say on a day that I'm at my carb, limit, maybe I don't want to be having those beers, right? So you do have to kind of, you probably need to add it into your macros and kind of figure out where that's going to be safe.
Yeah.
But, it's it was a fun experiment.
All right. All right. Well, we hope that benefited you. We hope that gives you just some insights into how alcohol affects your diet. So we will kind of wrap it up there. We hope to see you back next week. We have new videos each week. So stay tuned, subscribe, and we will see you then. Thanks.